back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Rangers and Astros are now done with their first two series of the year, and not a great week for the Rangers, Mike.
No, you lose a series to the A's, you lose a series to the Astros, who it seems early on this season can only beat the Rangers. Everybody else they're struggling with. Bottom line, the AL West is not 2 weeks into a very long baseball season,
Fair.
But the AL West is not great to start this season.
Especially for some preseason favorites. More specifically, granted, the Rangers have shown some life, but more importantly, guys, what do you think about the way the Rangers have started this season? Is there enough good counteracting the bullpen issues I think that everyone seems to be talking about?
Yeah, I think it's been a decent start offensively. Now, this past week was a little slow, but you've seen what they can do. Just Friday night, scoring 12 runs in Houston, and even with your starting corner infielders out, there doesn't really feel like there's a break or a big break in this lineup right now. And you get those guys healthy. Lowe will be back in a few weeks, you presume. It's going to be a little while on Josh Young, but this team can put the ball in play. They can make good starting pitchers work, and the 500 record isn't ideal. Losing, 4 out of 7 to Houston, also not ideal. But if you can just get through all these injuries and keep scoring runs, the schedule will lighten up too, because the April slate has been really tough. If you look at some of the teams that are going to play this week, Detroit's no slouch. They're going to take on the Reds later this month. It's not going to be all that easy to stay over 500 here in April.
Bob, for you, we've seen the Rangers scuffle a little bit out of the break. We've seen the Astros scuffle in a big way, with the exception of this weekend series. Who should be more concerned by the start of their 2024?
Oh, I imagine the Astros, but only slightly. It's baseball, and that's the fun thing about a postseason run, is that we sort of start equating it to football in terms of the ramifications of every result. This is a must-win game tonight, and the next one's a must-win game too. Now we're back in the cadence of April. We're back in the 162-game long marathon, and a couple rough series in early to mid-April should not upset anybody. You stay alive, stay in it, stay competitive. This team is obviously good enough to do all those things, and see where you are once we start actually getting ready for football again. So I have a hard time stressing about games in April, I guess is what I'm going to say.
8-8 through 16 games, basically 1/10th of the season to this point. You're at halftime of game 2 of the Cowboys season when you compare the two in terms of the percentage of the season we are through for the Rangers. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to get too up in arms in at this point. The one thing that irritated a lot of people on Friday night, though, was the umpire behind the dish. And I know this is something, Andrew, you really wanted to get into, because there was a lot that was questionable about the way that all transpired.
I know this is going to eventually turn into an Angel Hernandez discussion, and we've had this discussion in many forums over the last decade plus of his time behind the plate. But why are we allowing umpires to make these egregious mistakes and affect games to the level that they were at? Specifically with that game, it was an 8-2 game at the time. Wyatt Langford, the bases loaded, struck out on 3 balls so far off the plate, they might as well have been in Oklahoma. And at the same time, I know we're kind of joking about this is April, this is the early part of the season, and yet that affected, I'm sure, the Astros' chances of getting back in the game. That affected how Bochy then used his bullpen for the remainder of it. And you don't know how that might have trickled down and affected the rest of the series, when at the end of the season we're talking about a 1 or 2 game difference between the Rangers winning the division outright or going on the road for the entirety of their playoff run. So the larger question for me is, why are we still letting human error affect things like strike zones, like foul tips, which you saw in the opener? What's the deal here?
I'm absolutely right there with you on this. I've always found the idea that good is not the enemy of perfect is a way we are navigating these sports. And so when we talk about instant replay, for some reason the enemies of technology helping these guys get a little bit better at jobs they're not very good at seems to be held to the standard of, if it's not perfect, then we're upset about it. The replay system in all these sports, I know the English Premier League has trouble with it, the NFL has trouble with it, so baseball resists, and they deduce it down to robots running the game, and the human element is why we all fell in love with this game. Doggone it, getting the call right is why we hold this sport and every sport to the level that it's got to be be at least as good as we can see on television on our couch. And so I absolutely advocate, even the tennis challenge system, which I know the minor leagues are working on, where you can just challenge a call. We go to the screen, and if it's in the square, it's a strike. This isn't that hard. Baseball is always resisting, kicking and screaming, and I just think this is a real easy choice to make. And it was about 30 years ago too.
Well, a big reason that Angel Hernandez still has a job is the MLB umpires have a very strong union. And I don't think you're going to see a day where there's no umpire behind the plate and they just go full automated. I do love the challenge system, which is getting better and better in the minor leagues, and I'm guessing we'll eventually implement that. But my only slight worry about having an automated strike zone is it feels like right now we have all these pitching injuries with dudes having to stress throwing as hard as they can, max effort all the time, try to get as much spin on the ball as they can, and that is a weapon to counteract the hitters right now. If you go full automated strike zone and you don't have an umpire calling an inch or 2 or 3 outside the strike zone just to give the pitcher a little something to help his cause, I feel like it could tilt the game in a way that we're not really thinking about. I think the hitter's going to have a huge advantage if we go to an eagle eye type system.
Is that following the same path as other sports? Is that what baseball might want, a more offensive game? Because so many other sports are making tweaks to make it more offensive. Do they ultimately maybe want that?
I think ideally they probably want that, but when you have a pitch clock that's already made games very digestible, I'm just worried that we're going to see a ton of walks, and managers are going to just go through their pitching staff like crazy. I think you should maybe expand pitching rosters. That would definitely help, especially some of the injury issues here. I'm just imagining a system where a pitcher won't get a corner, and that's going to dramatically affect their outing, and it's not going to make it the best possible product, even though everybody thinks it will be. I might be on an island here.
It just seems to me like the strike zone, I don't think we would see a ton of walks, Sean, because the strike zone, as it's written in the rule book, is from the letters to the knees. I mean, we've never seen that. The strike zone in Major League Baseball feels like a dinner plate at times, maybe a pizza pan. And if they actually called it like it should benefit the pitchers. I think you would have so much more space. It would be interesting to see them actually enforce the strike zone as it's written, because I don't think I've ever seen that in my lifetime.
No, and you go back to the 90s when Maddox and Glavine were painting corners, they were getting a very liberal wide strike zone by the umpires, and those are guys that threw in the low 90s, and they didn't have to overpower people. But if we have a true strike zone, I worry that you're going to have so many pitchers feeling, man, I got to blow this right past this dude, so I'm going to just go max effort, and it's the third inning trying to throw 97, when if it was a slightly wider strike zone or you had a few corners that you were given, maybe you can throw 92 or 93 and preserve your arm. That's my only real issue with having a fully automated strike zone.
The good thing is like you're saying, Sean, they're at least testing some of these things in minors, right. So we're starting to see that the sea change here, and at some point we're going to see this improve.